Hello guys, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel and another video. Today guys, I'm going to be talking you through a comprehensive guide on all of the information you need to know if you are thinking about moving to Ireland to find a job or to work. I will do a separate video if you're looking to study as well, so stay tuned for that one. Obviously, being Irish, growing up in Ireland, I do have good knowledge and insight into the market, particularly with my job. I used to work in an estate agency in Ireland, so a lot of our tenants that would come into our properties were from India. So I have firsthand seeing what kind of jobs they're doing and information about all of that. It is my job here to give you some further things to think about. I think that if you are just in India and you're just looking at coming to Europe or a country like Ireland, it's easy to assume that finding a job is easier here because it's a smaller population. And yes, the job market in India is extremely competitive. So I'm here to actually tell you the truth. So the first thing is, which fields in Ireland are most in demand? Which fields are actually hiring frequently and have a demand for skilled workers? At present, the main industries that are hiring the most and that Indians in particular will have the skill set for is IT, tech, finance, healthcare, and some sciences. For Indians, obviously there are visa requirements and other factors, so I'll get into that in a second. A lot of Indians will have education in those areas from India, or if you're studying from Ireland. So those are the main areas that probably you'll have the most luck in finding a job in Ireland in. Because us Irish, not a lot of us study IT or tech or medicine and things, so there is more demand to hire non-locally for those types of positions. If you're in more of a niche field, a niche area, it will likely be more difficult to find a job because even Irish people in those areas may struggle to find a job too. For example, creative fields or things that are outside the box that aren't your typical jobs. So moving on to the visa requirements, a majority of the Indians I've seen coming to Ireland have gotten employed based on the critical skills permit. So what is the critical skills permit? It's a list from our government of areas in which we are outsourcing to find these particularly skilled workers that we don't have in Ireland to come in, and you will get a visa and usually quite high salaries as well because of the nature of that visa is we don't have the workers and we need them. So the best thing to do is check out this website and you can see at present the list of critical skill jobs in which Ireland are looking for skilled workers in. I would definitely say if you are in a field on this list, it will be more easier for you to find a job for sure. That was also my experience in seeing Indians come to Ireland, as a lot of them were on the critical skills permit. This visa has other benefits as well in terms of you can bring your spouse to Ireland based on that visa also. Many companies, if they can find similar skilled workers in that field, they wouldn't need to outsource to someone not from the EU where they have to sponsor their visa and do a lot of paperwork in order for them to be able to work there. So that's why it is important to take a look at that critical skills permit. So this brings us on to, what is the job market like in Ireland? Well, like any job market, it's kind of ever changing. There's ebbs and flows, right? It's similar in every country, I feel. In the last 1 to 2 years, there's been huge tech layoffs. So in IT companies, tech companies, they have been letting go of staff. I saw it firsthand in my job. Like I said, people were renting out properties. A lot of them were working in this sector and then they have to go back to their home countries because they have no job and they haven't been able to find a new one. It also hugely depends on your experience. Do you have experience already from a company in India? Are you a fresher? Have you just finished a master's and now you're looking for a job? Based on those, it will also greatly vary, and will also greatly vary which kind of job you can get naturally. If you have experience from a company back in India, back home, then yeah, chances are your chances to find a job will be better if you already have experience in that field. I do think it's more difficult to find a good paying job naturally if you are a fresher and are just now finding a job after studying. I have seen firsthand with Indians I know in Ireland, some of them it took almost a year for them to find a job. It can take many months, and during that time a lot of people, let's say you have just finished studying and you are now looking for a job, a lot of them have to work in retail and other kind of quite low paying jobs in order to sustain themselves until they actually find a job in that field. So it can definitely be a long process. It definitely can take a lot of rejection and a lot of just trying and trying again. So I think that that's important to note, that it can be a lot of trial and error, a lot of luck, and just a lot of determination to keep on trying and not get defeated if you get rejected. That can be a particularly difficult time because working in a more minimum wage job, it is more difficult to have the same lifestyle of living. It can be a struggle financially. So there's so many factors really into whether you will get a job here. It's not a clean-cut answer, and for every field and job type, it will be different. One of my best advice is to reach out to someone who is in that field in Ireland and see what process they had and what hurdles did they have to go through in order to get that. Yeah, as you can see, there's so many different factors on whether you'll find a job. It's really not just as clean cut as if you have the experience to back it up, great. you are going to get a job. Really depends on the market, the time of the year even. So this brings me on to my next one, is how do you find a job in Ireland, where to search, how to find them. The first thing I will say is, as a general statement, most companies will prefer to meet you in person for an interview. Yes, you can still try and apply from India or your home country, but it is much more likely that you are going to get a job secured if you are physically in the country and actively going to in-person interviews. Obviously, that's not possible for everyone, and just, yeah, depending on your visa and things like that. If you have studied here, then you have a certain time frame in which you can find a job and stay here and do interviews and such. But yes, if you are just purely just coming here for a job and you are not coming to study, maybe you will then have to search from India, and I do think that that could be more difficult. So the first suggestion is to look on LinkedIn. LinkedIn always has jobs popping up. You can check there regularly, and on LinkedIn you can find more niche positions than you find on the broader job search websites. That has been what I have found anyway with my field. Maybe it won't be the same for every field, but some of them don't advertise on those bigger ones and only advertise on LinkedIn. The main one that I've always used is called Indeed.ie. This is a really good one. It's a really easy website to navigate, and you just sees in very clear order all of the jobs available in the field you're looking for. So most of my jobs I feel like I have found on this website, and yeah, I just find it really easy to use. Another website is jobs.ie. Again, you can filter it based on your field, and it just lists very clearly the positions and titles available and the location, whether they're in Dublin, Cork, Galway, which city or place they're in. If you do secure a position, there's also this website called glassdoor.ie where you can search job reviews of people who have worked in that company, their pros or cons of working for that company, because that is hugely important, right? It's not just a case of getting any job. You want a job that you're going to be happy in and that's going to have a good work culture, a good working environment, and a healthy working environment. So how you can prepare best for this job search is to have a really good CV. Have it really clear cut. Use templates. I use Canva to create my CVs, and I feel like they always stand out so much more. When you use a professional website and a professional template, you look more professional. It does make you stand out from the others because your CV will look a bit different, and that's going to be eye-catching. Using ChatGPT now to formulate the paragraphs and the structure is also really beneficial, especially if you are worried about your English or anything like that. Next would be to make sure you have references ready to go. If you do get called for an interview, majority of employers will call your previous references, so do make sure that you have at least 2 good references of people that the job can call to back up your experience and give you a good review. So next we're going to talk about the most important, salary. Why does anyone want a job? This one I think is actually one of the most important next to the cost of living in Ireland. These are kind of linked, but basically to give you a rough rundown is the average salary in Ireland is €40,000. This would be considered like an average normal salary, so more or less 40 lakhs. That's not an exact conversion, but it's rough. The minimum wage in Ireland is roughly about €25,000 per annum, which is about 25 lakhs. I know to an Indian coming here, maybe that sounds like so much money, but it's really not because of the cost of living. If you are a fresher or you've just finished graduating, you could expect that a base salary could be about 40,000, or it could be a bit lower, potentially 30 to 35,000, depending on the job market, depending on the field that you've studied, all of those factors. If your job is under the critical skills list, then you could naturally expect a higher salary. I have seen salaries of up to €120,000 for stuff like software engineering and things like that, and high demand jobs. However, that's rare. It's not a common salary at all. So do have lower expectations on the salary in general, but also once you realize the cost of living here, that actually won't go too far. It's important to know the tax system here as well. What chunk of your salary is going towards tax? Because maybe you'll be surprised. Because I was when I found out. It's probably not something a lot of people would think to research, but honestly, I remember when I was younger and first found out this, I was kind of shocked how much money is going towards tax. So there are 2 tax brackets. If you are earning below €42,000 per annum, you will be charged 20% tax on your income. The second bracket is if you are earning above 42,000 per year, you will get taxed 40% of your income. 40% is quite a lot. So basically it means if you are earning €100,000 per annum, after tax, you are actually only earning about €64,000 per annum. So it is a huge chunk of your salary going towards income tax. So really do consider that as well when you are factoring in, you know, the cost of your living expenses and things like that, is that after tax, you may be a bit surprised. So this brings me on to the important thing of what is the cost of living in Ireland. A recent statistic showed that Ireland has a 16% higher cost of living than the UK. So I think this is a bit of a misconception. People don't really realize until they come here. And I've heard this from non-Irish people that have come to Ireland, is they were shocked about the cost of rent, the cost of living, the cost of groceries, electricity bill costs. So there is so much to factor in. Even if you are on decent salary and average salary, funding your way through general cost of living can be tough. Accommodation is one of the huge ones, which I'll talk about separately because that's a whole nother topic. For example, in the last year, electricity prices have skyrocketed. I know some of my friends who are paying in the winter months potentially up to €200 per month just on electricity. Rent is going to be one of your biggest expenses that are going to come out of your paycheck. There's a housing crisis in Ireland, so it is crazy even trying to find accommodation. And groceries, naturally, like everywhere, inflation is happening. It's more expensive. However, I do feel like the cost of groceries in India versus Ireland, they're not so different. I feel like the socializing aspect and that type of thing is more expensive in Ireland. But in terms of day-to-day groceries, India and Ireland are not too far apart in the costs. Even more important to consider is if your spouse or partner is coming with you and moving here with you, are they going to be working? And if not, will your salary cover the expenses of two people? I think for a lot of us, it's very difficult to even sustain ourselves on our own salary, depending again what field you're in. But you know, from me and the people I know, my friends, it's tough. It is tough. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck in Ireland. So yeah, it's really important to consider if you have another person to sustain, then even more so, you need a high salary package just to sustain both of you. Honestly, there's not too many people in Ireland who are able to support a family based on one salary. It's definitely not how it used to be back in the day. Majority of families nowadays need two working people in Ireland, and not just in Ireland, I would say in a lot of countries. Just to give you a glimpse of some costs of some things, more in the terms of socializing and, you know, things outside of your home that may be expensive. For example, a pint of beer nowadays in Ireland is roughly between €6 and €7. The price of a coffee, you may be looking at spending between €3 to €5, generally around the €4 mark for a coffee. And for eating out for a dinner at a restaurant, you could be looking to spend potentially €50 to €100, depending on what kind of restaurant. So all of these factors on what kind of life you want to live and what kind of lifestyle you have will all depict kind of your expenses and just all things to factor in as well when you are looking for a job on what kind of salary exactly do you need to sustain yourself here. Just to give you a little point of reference is, for example, in my early 20s, I was on a minimum wage salary, so 25 lakhs per annum. And my rent at the time was €500 per month for a room in a house. And after I paid all of my bills and expenses and, you know, a little bit of socializing, I was left with roughly like €100 per month to save. So there really isn't much room on a minimum wage. You definitely can't live alone on a minimum wage. You will need a house share or to live with other people. And just to note that you are really probably not going to be saving much of anything. So that's just to give you a bit of context into like, okay, on a minimum wage salary, what are you looking to have after all of your expenses? I also was not eating super well at that time. I was probably eating like noodles and bread and sandwiches most of the time. Pasta was a big one. So this brings on to the next thing, which is one of the biggest factors you really need to look into before you come to Ireland is accommodation. The cost of accommodation, what kind of accommodation to expect, what is housing like in Ireland. So I have first-hand knowledge of this because this was my job. Guys, finding accommodation in Ireland, in Dublin specifically, is extremely difficult. People spend months and months and months looking just to find accommodation. And on top of that, it's really pricey. It's really expensive. The majority of people in Ireland, we all spend a huge chunk of our income on rent. To give a little bit of context, for example, if you're looking to share a room in a house, we call it house share. It basically means you have a bedroom, maybe it's an apartment or maybe it's a 3-4 bedroom house, and you're renting one room in that house. So you are sharing a kitchen and you're sharing a bathroom, most likely. Some of them have their own bathrooms as well, but for that, you're looking to spend pretty much between €600 to potentially €1,000 per month for a house share. Again, if it has its own bathroom, you're more looking at a pricier one, but on average, about €600 to €800 you can expect to spend on a house share. The next option then is if you do want your own space completely and are able to afford a bit more, then the next option would be a studio apartment. We also call them bed sits, and it's basically like everything is in the one room. So your kitchen, your bed, everything is all just in one room. This is one of the most common renting dwelling types available in Ireland because they're more affordable. They are still really expensive, but you know, I think that's the reality is a lot of people can't afford a 1-bed or 2-bed apartment, so end up living in a studio. And a lot of them can be very, very small. I think that's one thing a lot of people are really shocked about when they come to Ireland and they start searching for somewhere to rent, is the size of the properties are very small. A lot of them don't even have any storage for you to put, much of your belongings or anything like that. So do not have any high expectations about, unless you have a lot of money to spend on accommodation. The struggle is there for us all in terms of the kind of accommodation you're going to get for your money. A studio apartment can cost anywhere between €1,200 per month up to €1,600 per month. That may not even be including bills, so to factor in bills and Wi-Fi into that also. For a one-bed apartment then, where you have a separate bedroom from the kitchen, you're looking at between maybe €1,400 per month up to €2,000 or more per month. Again, these brackets are just varied because sometimes you do see a lucky one and that is cheaper, but they're just rare and the competition for them will be so much. So that is a rough guideline on the kinds of accommodation available. I know that a lot of people, especially if they're just coming to Ireland for the first time, or maybe especially if you're a student and a bit younger, a lot of people don't mind house shares. I've always lived in house shares because it's never been affordable for a lot of us to live on our own. So yeah, it's definitely a good option if you don't mind living with other people. If you prefer to live with Indians or like a host family, there's so many options for that as well. I'll talk about that later when I come to talking about different Indian communities and groups in Ireland. But yeah, accommodation is a huge one, and really do prepare well in advance if you have a job offer. Really, really plan in advance trying to secure accommodation, because you don't want to be stuck when you get here and be paying for really expensive hotels, up to €100 a night. So you need to put a lot of planning and time into finding somewhere to rent here. So there's a housing crisis here, which is why there's just not enough supply to accommodate the demand of people are always coming into the cities and Dublin, and there's just not enough housing to accommodate everyone. And thus, that's why the prices are so high. Do also be really careful if you are trying to find accommodation on any Facebook groups. There's a lot of scams going around as well. It happens all the time to people, particularly if you're new to the country. People take advantage of it. Just be really, really wary to do not give anyone a security deposit before you've seen the property. I'm also going to link here Citizens Information website, which will tell you all of the information about renting a property, what's normal. For example, we do take security deposits. I know some other European countries don't have that, so they find it odd, like why are they asking for money before we've even moved in? But yeah, that is normal in Ireland, so do check out Citizens Information for just all the information you need. Also, there is a huge Indian community in Ireland. There are so many Indians here, so you will have no trouble finding other Indians to connect with, and there's lots of Facebook groups as well for Indians in Ireland. That's the name of one of them, is Indians in Ireland Facebook group. So if you have any questions about their job search or looking for a job or housing, you can ask people there and they will definitely get back to you. Often people post jobs there as well. Maybe someone who's working in that company, they're hiring, and their bosses ask them to post a job spec in these groups to see if there's any other skilled workers in the same area who want a job. And many people are advertising their rooms or apartments to rent here as well. Maybe there's a couple and they're looking to find a third person. So people will advertise if they have rooms or places available, which could be good for you as well if you are worried about how different the culture is going to be here and what people are going to be like. Living with other Indians may be the most comfortable option for many people. A lot of Indians I know, they are all living with other Indians, and that's natural. You're staying within your community and you get to adapt slowly into a new life and a new culture. So definitely check out Facebook groups for Indians in Ireland. People will definitely be able to help you there. So just to touch on a little bit about what is Ireland like, the culture of Ireland, maybe socializing, just more miscellaneous things, food, things like that. I'll try to rush through them briefly because, I think I've covered the most important aspects, but still coming to a completely new country, it is a new way of life, it is a new culture, it is different, it's going to be different for you. So these are just some of the things to consider. In general, Irish people are so friendly. They are very nice, very warm. If someone talks to us, we'll happily respond. We're not just going to be like, oh. Irish people are very warm and friendly and humorous, I would say. People use a lot of humor here. Yeah, they're just kind. They will try to help you if they can. In terms of trying to make friends in Ireland, this is information I've heard from people from outside of Ireland that have moved here, that I knew in the past and was talking to, and a lot of them have said they found it difficult to make friends in Ireland. I think it's more in particular with Irish people. I've seen this myself from my own kind of, life, is that Irish people, they do tend to initially stick to the groups that they either grew up with or went to school with or went to college with. And I think it's just that Irish people are a bit more reserved generally, and it does take us longer to open up to people as a general thing, right? So yeah, you may have to put in more effort to really connect with an Irish person on a deeper level and become, you know, close friends with them, but it's worth it when you do. And this again, it's just, it varies, you know, but that is generally also my own experience. So don't be too discouraged if you're finding it difficult to make friends with the locals. I think the best thing to do is join meetup groups. That we have meetup.com as well. So lots of events going on to meetup groups. I've been to them myself. And it's great because you meet people from all different kinds of countries. Dublin is such a melting pot of different cultures and countries. People are coming here all the time to study and work. So you get to meet people from everywhere in the world, and that's amazing. And yeah, as a general sense, honestly, the main way people socialize in Ireland is going to the pub. However, yeah, a lot of people don't drink, you know, from outside of Ireland. So that's just one thing to not let it discern you, that if you do meet people and they just keep wanting to go to the pub, just suggest going for coffee, say that you're not for drinking. You know, if they're going to be a friend, it shouldn't matter, but it's definitely something that is the reality here. And I don't love that, but at the same time, it's the way it is part of our culture, is that's how people socialize, is they go for a drink. But just to expect a lot of what people will do after work, on the weekends, on a sunny day, on any day, is go for a drink. In terms of food, we have every kind of cuisine and food that is in the world, I think. Because like I said, we have so many people from different countries and cultures. So we have so many different Chinese restaurants, Indian restaurants, lots of different places like that. We'll have different kinds of markets. We have Asian food markets where you can buy the same products that you would get back in India. There's Polish food markets. There's lots of different specific shops if you want your specific produce from back home. They are a bit more pricier, naturally, because they're imported. But yeah, if you're particularly craving something from your home country, then there is a high likelihood that these Asian stores will have that. So you don't need to worry that if you're worried about adapting to what is the food culture here, you can still buy those same products you would get back home and make the same dishes and Indian food that you had at home. As a general consensus, our food is more bland. In comparison to India, do not expect as much flavor in the food. It is a bit more bland naturally. Obviously, it completely depends where you're going, what you're eating, but that's just a general consensus, is you probably will find food to be more bland here. But in terms of food, I just wouldn't worry, because you do have so many options available. If you're cooking at home, you can make all of the same stuff you would make in India. It's not like here in India where you can't get much Western foods. It's kind of the opposite. Is like you have so much options for any kind of food or cuisine that you want to eat in Ireland, so you won't be stuck at all. And same if you're vegetarian, because I'm vegetarian, and yes, every restaurant will not have as many vegetarian options as in India, but there still usually will be at least one option in most restaurants for a purely vegetarian dish. Ireland does eat a lot of meat, so just to consider that, always look up the menu before you go eat at a restaurant to make sure that they have a vegetarian dish for you. And there's also nowadays so many vegan restaurants popping up and vegan options in restaurants, usually at least one in every restaurant. So you don't have to worry too much, but again, it just depends on what kind of vegetarian you are. In Ireland, for example, you can be a vegetarian but eat eggs, like that's quite normal. So just different things to consider, like find out, is there egg in it, stuff like that. Okay, and moving back to some legality things again before I finish up, is permanent residency and citizenship. So if you are longer term looking to actually settle down, have a life in Ireland, have a family here, buy a house here, all of that stuff, then you're going to be in these categories. So permanent residency means that you have the right to live and work in the country. Kind of means everything except you can't vote. You wouldn't be eligible for an Irish passport, but you would have a permanent residency card. So to be able to apply for that, it's actually not too difficult. You have to have worked on a general employment permit, then you have to be here for the last 5 years. And if you are in the critical skills bracket and have that visa, then you only need to have been here for 3 years before you can apply for that. So it's really not that long of a time. It's actually quite easy to get citizenship in Ireland, especially in comparison to me trying to live in India. It's so difficult. But yeah, so and for citizenship, you have to be living in Ireland 3 consecutive years out of the last 5. And again, be holding a valid permit to be working here and living here. So in general, it's actually not that difficult to live long-term in Ireland. So in general, if you are thinking of coming to Ireland, I guess ascertain what is your goals. Are you wanting to live here just for a year and earn some money and go back to India? Are you wanting to study and then go back home? Or are you wanting to actually stay here long term? They are very different, because if you are just wanting to save up a bit and then go back to India, then you don't need to worry as much about affording a life here. You can live in just a very basic way for maybe 2 years and then take the money and go back home, and that money will be great in India. However, if you are wanting to establish yourself here more longer term, then definitely to consider the cost of buying a house. Look into that, because the reality for a lot of us is we can't afford to live in Dublin or the capital and buy a house there, because the prices are crazy. So if that is the case that you want to settle here, you may look into having to move to a more rural area or move outside of Dublin, maybe move to another city like Galway in the west. So there's just so many factors in terms of if you're staying short term versus long term, which to consider as well, and the cost of raising a family in Ireland as well. But that's going into a whole nother topic that I can do a separate video on if you want to know. So guys, I hope this was helpful for some of you if you are considering coming to Ireland. I hope this gave you a bit of insight into what to expect. Yeah, just wishing you absolute best if you are going this route. Either way, you will have an amazing experience of taking a risk and making a change for yourself, and I love that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.